Hello, Michelle. Thank
Hi.
you so much for being here with me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I know taking your time, I really appreciate it because I know it's a really busy season with your book launch just a few weeks away. I cannot wait. Super exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it too. It's going to be, I mean, the whole goal is to just hopefully get people to really start understanding that no matter what they've survived, they can live with their soul wide open and really, be curious about life again and really experience a full life again.
That's so amazing. Like, how do you feel 20 plus years later telling your story and talking about that day? Yeah, how does it feel?
That's a great question, by the way. I mean, I didn't expect, really to be talking about it, this many years later, or to be really, becoming an author and getting out there and being such an advocate for healing and, um, you know, getting my certification for, being trauma informed and all of these kinds of things. This is so unexpected. And that's kind of what life does to us, right? It puts
Mm.
stuff in front of us and then we have a choice. Okay, are we going to just let this destroy us, or are we going to have a major breakthrough and start to understand that maybe there's something within this traumatic situation and all of this pain and everything that could really just be a blessing, not only for myself and my daughter and my family and my friends, but for a lot of other people as well. And so for me to be talking about it in the way that I'm talking about it now, because I've chosen to do the work that I needed to do to heal all of those places, and not just from the kidnapping, but heal my life even way beyond before that. Growing up in a violent situation, growing up in a really turbulent and having such a turbulent, teen years and all of these years, to be talking about it from a healed space is I don't know, I just kind of love it. Yeah, I really just love it.
Yeah, you look so like happy and radiant. It's
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
Um, so let's dive in. I'm sure everyone is really curious to hear what happened. So let us know what happened exactly that day and how it all evolved from there.
Well, I had been in a career in corporate banking for 13 years. I started as a part-time drive-up teller, excited to be like having my regulars in the part-time, on my drive-up window. I was the one with like the dog bones for the dogs. And, this is back when, when coming through the drive-up for at the bank was like a big deal. There were lines and it was just fun and I loved it. And I ended up really falling in love with banking and the structure and sort of the security around that, because I grew up with very little security. So for me, that felt really good. And I ended up working my way up laterally, for a little while. I was then full time. And then eventually I became an assistant VP after 13 years. I was a regional sales manager, ran a couple of different regions for an independent bank, and then ended up at Bank of America as their AVP and running one of their branches. And they would send me they were like, okay, this branch is having a difficult time. Can you go in and just sort of turn this this particular branch around, which I did. And so I was there, it was thriving. And I was living in a rural area, kind of nearby in the area where the branch was. And three gunmen and a woman that was outside, the lookout person, they had been scheming this plan from the FBI reports for about 2 months. So they'd been stalking me. They'd been watching my every single move for quite a long time. And they ended up breaking the door to my home down one evening and held us hostage and basically tormented us all night for 14 hours and went over and over and over again why they were there, their plan for why they were there, put what they told us were bombs on our bodies, and took my daughter from me and told me that if I didn't rob the bank for them, that she was going to be murdered first and then I would be next. And so I had a roommate at the time as well, and she came home really late that night, and they, you know, duct taped her as well and put her, in the back room in the kids' room. And basically, I was forced to rob a bank at gunpoint with bombs on my back. Then it was the branch that I was the manager of, and really just not knowing if I would ever see my child alive again, if I was going to live, if I was going to make it through this, if I was going to explode at any moment. It was just a horrific, horrific situation.
How old, I'm having goosebumps listening to this. So how old was your daughter at that time?
Breea was 7.5 at the time. So she was little, but is 7.5. You're remembering everything.
And they separated you and your daughter right away during that?
Right. Yeah, right away. I mean, she ran in one direction while she started to get up to run to one side, and I was grabbed by my hair and shoved face down to the floor on the carpet with a gun to my head. And I didn't know where she was. I had no idea. I didn't know what was happening, but they grabbed her as well and put her face down on the ground with a gun at her head as well, by the back of her hair, over towards the bedroom area.
So the entire 14 hours throughout the night, you were separated. You couldn't talk to her, calm her down. You didn't even.
No, eventually they pulled me up and spun me around on my knees on the carpet to look at her. And eventually they let us sit on the couch together. And at one point, actually, she was like, I want to go lay down. I want to go lay down. So they let us go in my room and actually let her lay there. And I was next to her. And one of the gunmen, the ringleader, was at the end of the bed, and he propped himself in a chair at the end of the bed with this gun on us and just sat there and watched us and let her lay down. So it wasn't like they kept us separated all night. So that was, a blessing in the midst of something completely crazy.
I'm sure that felt like the longest night of your life.
The longest, the longest, most difficult night of my life, for sure. I mean, it was 14 hours, and you begin to prepare to die in that situation. I didn't believe that there was any way we were going to make it out of that alive. There was, in my mind, that this was it. I was preparing to die, but in the slight chance that we would make it out, I was also paying attention to every little detail of them, which was kind of my superpower as a branch manager. I remember details about all my clients, and their kids are getting married, or they just had a grandbaby. So it was my job to remember details and build relationships. So, and I'm a detail person anyway. And so I was gathering details in my mind the whole night as well, because of the slim chance I was going to make it out of there. I needed as much as I could possibly bank in my mind, that could do whatever I could to help the police just nail them.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you really helped then with remembering all the details to solve the case in the end.
I did. I did. I actually ended up remembering that one of them had come into the branch and pretended to be a potential client. And I remember he'd given me a business card that, in hindsight, I mean, back then I thought it was a real business card, but in hindsight, it wasn't. It was sort of a fake business card. And I said, this person was at my desk. He was super unusual. He made me uncomfortable. The man in my house had the same eyes and stature and voice. I think it was the same person. Please get that business card, check my desk. And sure enough, the fingerprint on the business card was one of the things that helped the police track them down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was all part of their plan to come in up front to get to know about you and see you at work. And
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
And I read some of the transcripts from his parole hearing recently. They sent me the transcripts. I mean, I read like all 280 pages or whatever, because it was interesting, because I one of the things, and we'll get into this because my book 9 Days is about the road trip to Alaska. And on that road trip, I really began to wonder about who these people were as human beings, and not just these monsters or these, broken, lost people that, ended up making a horrific decision to destroy, not only our lives, but their own lives. So started wondering about who they were, what happened to them in their life that they took such a wrong turn. Right. And so in the parole transcripts, I ended up learning about him and his childhood and what
Mm.
happened to him. And our meeting with one of the other kidnappers, we ended up being able to sit down with him and learning about his life and what happened to him as well. And it's interesting how much healing can happen when we allow compassion a place to live and breathe inside of us. And that's exactly what happened. So I found out, that he came into the branch and he saw the picture on my desk of myself and my daughter. And he said, I didn't see a picture of a husband. I didn't see a ring on her finger. So he came in to see if I was single, if I had children, so when they were casing me and stalking me and following me home and coming into the branch, they were gathering information on whether or not I was going to be the perfect target for them. And apparently I was.
Wow, terrifying.
Yeah.
So the next morning they took you, and how did you get into the bank? Like, what did you tell? I mean, everyone else who was working that day, they must have seen on your face that something is going on, right? Like, how
Yeah. I mean, one of my employees said, are you okay? You seem off today. I mean, I was having a very, I was having a very detached experience. I was having sort of this out of body robotic experience in that moment. And when you go to the bank, you're at the bank before it opens. So yes, my staff kind of thought something was up, but I was trying to keep it together and hold it together and then, wait for the Brinks trucks to come to make their cash drop. And then I had 5 minutes, according to the instructions of our kidnappers, that I had to be out of the bank within 5 minutes of the Brinks truck leaving. So I had to just get into the vault and put all the money from the vault inside the duffel bag that they gave me that I needed to fill, and rush out of the bank and tell the lady that I had to bring into the vault with me, because everything's dual control, what happened. I was whispering what happened. I was whispering, look up my back, what's on my back. Are there any, because I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking dynamite's got to have some sort of serial numbers or some sort of identifying, markings or something. So I lifted my jacket. I had a jacket and a shirt. I was like, write anything down that you can see from this. And again, just trying to get as much information as I could to be able to nail these guys. So, and then I just swooped everything into the duffel bag and ran out, and somebody said early meeting. And I said, not exactly, and kept going and went out the door and hurled the bag into my Jeep and got in and followed instructions to where I needed to drive to drop him off, and eventually made it back to my house, where I wasn't even sure what I was going to find, if my girl was going to be there, if she was not going to be there, if she was going to be alive. I had no idea. And, thank God she was alive. She was still in the closet, duct taped. And we eventually just ran to the neighbors and up the hill and called corporate security and 911, and then and then the FBI showed up, and then the whole other piece of this began.
How did you and your 7-year-old daughter like cope with this, like right after? Like, how did you even handle it all?
Well,
Going
we
through such
weren't okay. We were wrecked. I mean, we were wrecked for a long time. We were not okay. The flashbacks, the PTSD, you can hear the voices, you can still smell the leather of their shoes when they shoved us onto the ground and were standing right in front of our face. And you could hear the duct tape unraveling. There was so much PTSD. There was so much trauma from that, not just for myself. My girl was completely traumatized, afraid of everyone, curled up in the corner, unable to go to the bathroom by herself. It couldn't sleep, the nightmares, the everything. I mean, it was It was a long, dark period of time for us. We never went back to that house to live in that house. We ended up living from hotel to hotel for a little while. We ended up getting a new place finally, but it was really noisy where we had moved to. So every car door slamming outside was a trigger. Had we had locks on every window. We had booby traps that we set up in the
Mm.
house at night in case anybody came in. Like we were living, we were not okay for a really long time. We ended up going to therapy at Rady Children's Hospital here in San Diego at the Chadwick Center and had the most incredible trauma therapists that helped us for 2.5 years finally work through our trauma, work through our PTSD. And during that time is when we were told that we should probably get out of Dodge and await the criminal trial. And that's when I chose to fly my daughter to Alaska to be with her grandmother and get her to safety and decide what I was going to do next. And that's when I really had a spiritual calling that led me to give away almost all of my things and pack up my car and drive to Alaska alone by myself.
So can you go into detail, like what happened at that moment, like that spiritual awakening? What did that look like?
It was amazing. I mean, I was in Alaska. I was there for 4 days to get my daughter settled and feel good at her grandma's up there. And she said, let's go, let's us and the family. This is her dad's mom, her dad's side of the family. And I just, even though her dad and I were divorced, I was still really good friends with her family, especially his mom. And we decided that we were going to go on a hike and go trekking across some glaciers up there. It's called the Matanuska Glacier. If you've never been, it's a must in the summer.
Oh.
It's gorgeous. And so we decide we're going to trek across these glaciers and go in these ice caves. And, at that point, it just felt so good to be in nature and so far away from everything that had happened in San Diego. And while I was there, I got this sort of calling to walk away. And it was kind of this follow me, come this way and follow me. And I was like, what is this? And I listened and I went. And at first I was a little freaked out because I'm on a glacier and I'm walking away from my entire group that I'm with. And now I'm alone, sort of at this peak on this glacier. And I end up being at this place that was just overlooking this glacial lake that was stunning. And I really received this calling and this inner calling, whatever you want to call it, divine guidance, voice, whatever you want to call it, source, that said, go back and give away all of your things and drive to Alaska, drive back here. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, no way. I'm scared of my own shadow. I cannot do this. I was kidnapped and held hostage. I have no money. What am I going to do? I have an old car with 104,000 miles on it. I was so confused at what this calling that was coming up was about. I was like, and I argued with God for a couple minutes. I was like, no. And it just kept coming to me. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? And I said, yes. And this calling was like, then you will do this. And I did. I flew home. I pretty much gave away the majority of my things that weren't sentimental. And my sister took the rest and put it in her garage. And I took what I could fit in a compact SUV with 104,000 miles on it and a little blue mini cooler with like some crackers and some canned chili and some tuna and the little boxes of cereal that you could peel the top open and pour a little bit of milk in there. And it makes like your own little cereal bowl. Like it's the little tiny ones, and that's what I lived on. And it was all that I could afford. And I just hit the road with just this calling that I didn't even know what this road trip was going to even be about, but it turned out to be absolutely one of the most life-changing, perspective shifts of my entire life. It turned out to be what was the thing that kicked off this healing journey that I've been on, really began on the road trip to Alaska.
So how did that go? I mean, I'm sure at first you were really scared, like you said.
Oh
I'm
my
sure you
gosh.
had like doubts over and over while you were driving. But
Yeah.
what happened like to you? What like thoughts? How did you process? What came up?
I mean, so much came up. I mean, you read the book 9 days, it's all about it. You can read all the stuff that came up. But for the sake of timing here, what came up was that I ran away when I was 15. I grew up I told you, in a very turbulent household. There was violence, there was physical violence, there was emotional abuse, there was verbal abuse growing up. So I left just before my 16th birthday. And what came up for me on the road trip, and I was that when I ran away, I had been running my whole life. I'd
Mm.
been running away from everything, and I didn't really realize it. And I had never dealt with the pain of my childhood, the disappointment of my childhood, the lack of um, really nurturing, healthy love in my childhood. And so, and what that did to my self esteem and the decisions that I had made from a really broken, angry, lost, hurt, abused little girl place, the decisions that I had made, I'd never dealt with any of that. What came up for me on the road trip was that if in order to heal from this trauma and in order to become the best example of healing for my daughter, I had to go all the way back to the beginning and heal it all. I had to finally face all of that. And I did all of that on the road. I mean, I spent 9 days on the road alone. I had my dog with me, but I mean, I spent hours, I slept in my car and eventually got a tent. So I slept in my tent finally. There was only one night that I actually spent in a hotel because it was freeze. It just was raining and muddy. And so I spent one night in a hotel, but the rest of the time I was, I didn't have the money to, stay in nice places and get hotels all along the way. And, it wasn't like that. It was very challenging. The weather was challenging, being alone at night out in the wilderness. Driving through the Yukon Territory and Alaska alone after being kidnapped and held hostage was very challenging for me, but I made it. And the things that I did to make it, and the people who I met to make it, and the people I had to rely on and start to trust in the kindness of others, was a big theme of this. And it was an incredible, incredible healing journey for me that I ended up videotaping and capturing the entire thing. And then about a year ago, I ran across these old tapes and decided to get them made into digital files and watch them all. And that's what sparked me to feel like it was time to write this book, 9 days.
Wow, I cannot wait to get my hands on this. It's such I mean, wow, I still admire you so much. Like from the outside, I'm like, but how did you do this? It sounds so challenging. Like you
Oh,
said, being out in the wilderness and like having these flashbacks. And then also the other part of the healing, like not only did you heal yourself and helped your daughter heal, but then the whole side of forgiveness, like how both you and your daughter forgave the kidnappers. That's the whole, it's like mind-blowing. I mean,
yeah.
it kind of makes sense. We know that it helps healing to forgive, but to really, when I think about it, I'm still like, but how do you do that?
For me, I had to, number one, you have to understand that if you want to heal completely and you want to be an example for your child or whoever it is, for me, my motivation was, how do I model recovery in a way that is going to help my daughter recover in a really positive, purposeful way? That was the goal for me. How do I model recovery in a way that is going to propel not only myself forward and in a positive way, but my daughter? And she was going to follow my lead, and I knew it. And so if I was going to walk around talking about, I hate them and they're monsters, they ruined my life, what would that have been teaching her? What would that have been feeding her? There was no way I was going to raise her that way. And in my mind, that would have been more damaging to her than that one night that they held us hostage and kidnapped us and tortured us. How do we respond to a traumatic event is going to determine how much more we are going to continue to harm ourselves and punish ourselves and keep ourselves in that box labeled victim. That is a 100% our choice. And when you set your mind to, I am going to allow myself to feel all these things that I need to feel in this traumatic state. I'm going to go through the grief. I lost my career. I lost my home. I lost my sanity for a minute. I lost the child that I had parented for 7.5 years. That child never existed again. I lost so much. I had to process all of that grief and all of that pain and all of that loss, but also with the understanding that I was not going to get stuck there, because getting stuck there would have ruined the rest of my life. It would have ruined my daughter in many ways. I don't know who she would have turned out to be if I would have stayed stuck there. But I knew that there was a way to process all of this pain, and with the help of a therapist and with the help of getting out in nature. And the number one biggest thing is listening and trusting that inner calling and that inner voice, and whatever you want to call it, spirit, divine, source, God, all of those things. It's really, really, really important that you tap into and start asking the question, what is the good that can come from this? Not, oh my gosh, why me? Why me? If you stay stuck on why me, you're going to be snared in a trap forever. You've got to break free from that and start asking yourself the right kinds of questions that propel you in the direction of positive, purposeful healing. And that was my goal. And so for me, in terms of forgiveness, a lot of people, like I said, on the road trip, I started wondering about them as human beings. These are somebody's sons. These are somebody's grandbabies. These are, this could be somebody's brother or dad or whatever. What happened to them? I wanted to know what happened to them to get them to a place in their life where they were so desperate that they chose to do something like this to a single mom and her child. And they chose to do something like this to themselves and to their families.
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine what they put their families through? And so I started thinking with compassion and love in the forefront. And of course, I wasn't thinking of forgiveness. I wasn't thinking like that. I was just thinking about compassion and love and who they were as humans. That led me to a place of understanding around them and who they were. That led me to a place of, I didn't want to talk about them as monsters. I wanted to talk about them as human beings and saying, gosh, I can't believe they did this to us, but I also can't believe they did this to themselves and their own families and things like that. That led me to understanding that I had to let go of every single bit of the anger and just put down all of those sort of sharp weapons that we pick up after something like that, that are very dangerous for our own lives and our own mental health and our own peace of mind. We have to put those sharp objects down that we've picked up after something like this, because we think they're protecting us, right? They're not. They're harmful to us. And so we put the anger down and we put all of that other stuff down, and we decide what good can come out of this. That's what I'm going to focus on. And forgiveness is really just letting go of all the negative of a situation that is holding you hostage. You just you put all of that down, and you decide that you're going to live your life in forward motion with compassion and love. And forgiveness is the byproduct of that.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's like, I just, while you were talking, had to think, what would your life look like now if you hadn't gotten down that path? You could still be like living in fear, and the relationship with your daughter might be a whole different than it is right now. So did she end up, I'm sure she did, but did she end up following your footsteps as far as the healing process? How is she doing now? And how's your relationship with her?
Oh my gosh. She not only followed in my footsteps, but she's become my greatest teacher. My absolute greatest teacher. Oh, I have chills talking about it. She's become my greatest teacher. She not only healed in a way that is so beautiful, she's become this incredibly vibrant, fun loving, curious, and wonderful woman, young woman. Even through, she was diagnosed and collapsed with a really rare and severe form of multiple sclerosis, and she literally said the kidnapping was like a piece of cake compared to what she had to recover from with the multiple sclerosis diagnosis and a catastrophic onset that was complete blindness and paralysis on the entire left side of her body. So this soul has been through a lot, and she's still so positive, happy. She's engaged now. She's getting ready to be married. She's walking and driving, and was tenacious in her own recovery from that as well. And our relationship is something incredibly, incredibly special. And just to give you an idea of her mindset and where she's at, she spoke up at one of our attackers' parole hearings, and he was the one that attacked her. She spoke up on his behalf to say he's done his time, he's done his work. We wrote him a letter several years ago, and we received a response back during the pandemic. And this letter is in 9 days in the book. It's unbelievable. You were at the retreat where I read part of it, and like, there's not a dry eye in the house when I read this letter from him.
Yes.
And the letter we wrote to him, and his response, and the healing that happened in his life and in his soul because of our letter to him saying, we don't think you're a monster, and we're not going to live the rest of our lives as victims. And we wish you didn't do this to us, but we did wish we didn't do it. We wish you didn't do this to yourself either. We all make mistakes, and we hope that you can heal the way that we have. That letter changed his life in prison, and he did a ton of work and became a leader in the spiritual program there and all this stuff. So she spoke up on his behalf at his parole. And I think a big reason why he was granted parole was because of her. And that's who my girl is. And she said, let him go be with his family.
So
And so,
beautiful.
yeah, it was amazing. And then we ended up doing a victim offender dialogue with him, and meeting him again in person with a couple of members of his family. That was just absolute magic. It was magic. That's all that I can say, is that it was magic, and it was healing, and it was beautiful, and it was beautiful.
I admire you and your daughter so much, and it's
Thank
so beautiful to see. I mean, you look so radiant and happy and
Thank
full of
you.
positivity. It's hard to believe that this all happened to you over 20 years ago, and now this is your life now. I mean, I feel really, really honored that you took the time to come on here today and share this incredible,
Thank you.
I mean, such an inspiring story. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me like this. I really, I feel like it's a calling. I feel like a lot of people out there are so scared to trust in what they're being called to do, because it's scary. It's really
Mhm.
scary. There's not, I'm not in this to, make a ton of money. Anybody that writes books, unless you're Nicholas Sparks or Oprah or somebody, you're not doing this. There has to be a sense of this being your calling and your purpose, and you have to get beyond that line that is drawn in front of you, where you're standing on the side that's really, you're scared. And it's scary to take the leap and go, I'm going to go talk about this, and I'm going to put my life out there, and I'm going to be honest and authentic about my life, and literally with just the hopes that, or with the intention, I won't even say hope, because my friend Jana, she's amazing. Jana from Emotional Healing Retreats, hope is a beggar. So you don't say hope, but it is my intention to help other people that have survived whatever it is that they've survived. I want them to know that they have the opportunity to live with their soul wide open too, no matter what they've survived. And that is my intention, not just with the book, but speaking to you and speaking out the way I do now. That is truly, truly my intention, is just really to inspire people to, put down those sharp weapons they carry around after violent trauma, and understand that there's a better way to live.
Oh my God, I love it so much. I have one last question.
Okay.
Do you agree that it gets easier the more you step into that fear? Because obviously you've done it many times over and over.
Over and over. Yeah, I mean, lean in. I mean, the biggest thing you've got to do, you've got to lean in. If you lean back away from it when it's right in front of you, you get further away from, what your purpose, what your purpose is, anytime there's that sort of, there's different kinds of fear. There's the fear that is, I'm going to get burned if I touch this fire. The fear is a healthy thing in certain situations that keep us alive and keep us safe. But when we're leaning into something and we're feeling scared because we're unsure of our emotional safety or these other things, our brains don't have the ability to really understand, is this kind of fear, or is it this kind of fear? Is this going to keep me alive, or is this? We have to be the ones to say, this is not the type of fear that is going to harm me physically or cause me to my survival to be in danger. This is fear that is coming from a place of self-doubt. This is the type of fear that is coming from a place where I'm not trusting myself, or I'm not trusting God, or I'm not trusting the plan. I'm not trusting, right? This isn't a survival type of fear. So really have that distinction between those two kinds of fear, and sit back and go, this isn't survival based fear. This is self-doubt based fear, and lean in. 100% lean in, step in, go for it, keep going for it. You're going to have a couple of times where you step back, because it doesn't get scary one time at the beginning. It's scary over and over and over and over again. I mean, there's fear related to releasing a book, and oh my gosh, is it talking about this? No one's going to read it. You have all those self-limiting beliefs. You have all those doubts. You have all the stuff that shows up. That's all in our mind. That's that negative self-talk, the monkey brain, that we have to learn to harness and get past, and really have different kinds of conversations with ourselves and our mind, that propel us forward, again, in a really positive, purposeful way. We can't let that kind of stuff stop us. No way. I mean, where would we be if we always let that stuff stop us? I'd be in bed all day, every single day, under the covers, looking like a hobo.
Oh my God, so beautiful. So where can people go and find you and stay up to date on the release of your book, which is soon?
Yeah, soon. It's June 9th. 9 days is being released on June the 9th. So they can go to michelle-renee.com. That's the best place to go. Also follow me on Instagram. It's _Michelle_Renee_. I'm really active on social media. I'm one of those people that really enjoy, connecting with people. And so I love reading people's DMs about how inspired they are. So definitely connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the socials, all the places. And then definitely my website, michelle-renee.com, is another really great way to reach me.
Okay, perfect. I put it all in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much. That went great.
Oh, I thought it was awesome. Thank you so much.
I had to kind of keep my eyes on the clock. I could have asked you so many more questions, but I felt like, it's.
Yeah, I felt like that was really great flow. The questions were perfect. It was a really good flow.
Yeah, that's why I thought about kind of, what do I want to make the focus on this episode? Because obviously with your first book, there's just so much content that we could be talking about, but
yeah, I'd rather just focus on 9 days and exactly what you were talking about, and really, my focus now, because the first book is really more technical. There's a lot of, the stuff about the FBI and the trial and all that is all in
Yeah.
the first book. It's more technical. This is the book I always wanted to write, and because it's focused on healing. And
Yes.
that's the focus of my life. That's the focus of my message. So I really appreciate you focusing on the healing, because that's really where I'm at in my journey. And that's really what my purpose is all about. It's not to talk about the salaciousness of the crime and the trial and how terrible
Yes.
all of that was and how terrible the lawyers were to me and, all of that trauma. They'll read a little bit about that in 9 days, but the focus needs to be healing. That's
Yeah.
the message.
Yes. And I think it can help women who went through something else
Yeah.
and have to heal from that. Not necessarily what you went through, but I think it's
Yeah.
relatable. They have children and they are struggling to recover from something. So hearing how you did it all, and it's just, I mean,
Yeah.
you sound so positive. I feel like you need to be on stages and traveling the world and
I
just,
wish I could. That is the goal. That would be my dream, absolute dream come true. That is really, really where I want to be, just inspiring people. And, I would like to have a retreat someday that's not, that's very different from Jana's, because what we didn't get into when you said, how did you teach your daughter these things? We did very specific things that were very physical to sort of get all of this out of our bodies. We got a kickboxing bag and beat the crap out of it. And we pinned a mask, like what the kidnappers were. We pinned it to the kickboxing bag and we beat the crap out of it. And then we only watched comedies for like 30 straight days, or we'd turn on disco music and dance around the living room and just dance and scream and just, we did very specific physical things to get ourselves back to a state of joy, an actual destination for our anger, which was the kickboxing bag. So there are very specific things that you can do that are very physical to get this out of your body and get yourself back to a place where you're hearing your own laughter again. You're dancing and your body is feeling joy and movement again, instead of being curled up in bed and, allowing depression to have any time whatsoever to take hold. Like, there are things that you can do. And so that's a whole other piece of this that I think is really important. I know it's hard to get all of that in, but that would be my dream come true, to be able to
yes,
travel.
but
And
that doesn't sound too hard to put into practice, to set up a retreat. And it makes so much sense, because I have a friend, her daughter passed away at age 9, 2 years ago. And really, she was diagnosed with cancer, and a year later, she was dead. Like, it happened so fast. And I never see her like laugh out loud again. She is like a whole different person. And I can see how something like what you did would help her, because the happy her is not there anymore. It's completely disappeared. So I think for different traumas need different kind of approaches.
Yeah, it's very different, and there can be a spiritual element to what I'm doing, but that's kind of a subcategory of what the spiritual piece is really, really big, but there's so much more to giving your trauma and your trauma response a destination outside of your body. And that's what writing is about. That's what kicking the crap out of a kickboxing bag is. That's what dancing is, or laughing at a comedy. And, all of these things, there's so many things that we can do, going to the gym or whatever it is. So many things that we need to be doing after we survive something, that we need to literally just get it out of, we need to give it a destination outside of ourselves.
And I never heard of this. Did you learn this from the therapist?
Yes.
Like the kickboxing and the laughing? Okay.
Well, not all of it, but she recommended the comedies. She recommended only happy, upbeat music. But we did the kickboxing bag. I wanted the kickboxing bag. There was another thing that we did. We would just throw like a really heavy ball or something up against the wall and just throw it. And as we throw it, we scream, and we'd go on hikes and pick up really heavy rocks. This is another really good one. Pick up heavy rocks and you just put them down on the ground. And as you're throwing them down on the ground, you're screaming whatever word you want to scream to them. whether you could say, I hate you. You could say whatever it is that you need to get out of your system. You just have to get it out of your system. And there's a lot of really great ways to do that.
Wow, I think you need to share this with the world
Oh,
and
thank
put
you.
on a retreat like that.
I want to. So I really, really want to. You know, it's a lot. I run a company called Verb Media Group. So I'm
You're a
busy,
busy lady. Yeah.
you know, it's a lot, but you know, this is my calling. I have a whole vision of doing this for people. So yeah, I'm really hoping this book is the launching pad for all of that.
I
Yeah.
hope so too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna subscribe to your email list. I wanna
Oh,
get my
good.
hands on this book for
Thank
sure.
you. Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
All
Thank you
right.
so
Thank
much.
you so
Well,
much.
thank you. And I will talk. Can you send me this? Can you email either Breea or myself? Can you email us this video so that I can help cross promote and take little snippets out and put it on social media and help cross promote this? And
Oh yes,
let me
I
know
would
when
love
it's,
that. That
yeah,
would
when
really
is it
help.
going to air? I don't know when it's going to go live.
So I'm planning in, let me check the calendar, end of the month. So probably on the 24th, 25th.
Perfect.
But yes, so you want me to send this link unedited, just the whole recording, correct?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
that would be great. And
I
then
wish we were still recording all that stuff I just said. That would have been so good too.
I know.
We'll do it next. That's all. It's all good.
And you know, sometimes I really feel like we could have a second route. You know, you could come on again in a couple months after the book, and we
Yeah,
could
that
pick
sounds
up
good. And let's focus on what we just talked about.
Yes, and the
Like
other
the
thing is,
actual things to getting trauma out of your system.
yes, and so I live in San Diego too, and I'm
Oh,
looking into, I want to put on a retreat, but I just started my own business last year. So I'm
okay.
doing human design readings, but I also, because it has helped me myself a lot, because my divorce is almost finalized, but it was a really toxic marriage. And if you asked Lance and Jana about it, like they've seen me 3 years ago, they see me now, I was a different person.
Wow.
And so,
Congratulations.
thank you. So that has helped me a lot. But I also, like you said, I had a spiritual awakening that was all like pushed me forward, but like going, really healing more, I needed like more help. So like Jana's retreat, like a lot of other things I implemented. So now I want to put on a retreat that focuses on more things, because I've
Love
learned
it.
that just one tool is not enough. We need more.
No, we need more.
And so I'm hoping in the fall to have it all figured out by then. I want to have a local retreat in San Diego. So now I'm talking to some of the hotels, and I want it to be like a weekend long, but maybe we can circle back
Okay.
in the summer and talk more about all the healing.
Let's do that, because that would be fantastic. And we're both here in San Diego. We should just get together and grab lunch.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love that too. That would be really great.
Yeah.
That would be really great. I would love it. And then we talk about the details and what you see your retreat being. I think I need to, you know, be somewhere where people can go hiking, because my whole entire theme of healing is around nature. It's the road trip and nature and how healing that was. So there has to be a nature element in what I do. So it'll probably be more like something, I don't know if it'll be up in Julian or somewhere where people can go on a hike or something.
Yeah, and that sounds beautiful, because
Yeah.
being in a hotel, that's what I realized in Carlsbad, it's just not, the energy is not amazing
No.
when you sit in a hotel room and you can hear the staff and the guests walking by. So maybe like an Airbnb or something.
Yeah, an Airbnb, that's exactly what I was thinking. An Airbnb in the mountains with a very small group of people. You know, I think maybe 12 people or something like that to get started, 10 to 12 people to get started in a really nice Airbnb somewhere where there can be the hiking. We can bring in a fitness trainer. We can bring in the kickboxing bags. We can bring in the people for the spiritual part of it, and
Like
really
sound
design
healing.
this around a whole, you know, a whole full body healing experience, mind, body, soul healing experience for me. That would be the best thing ever.
Mm,
That's my goal.
love
That's
it.
my vision. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be cool. I would just love to sit down and just brainstorm all this stuff.
Yes.
See what you've got, what you've got coming on. And you never know, we might end up, putting on a retreat together.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's definitely connect maybe next month before
Okay.
my kids get out from school and we're going to be traveling and stuff. But
Okay, perfect.
I will send you this in an email and then
Great.
we can start talking about dates, but I would definitely love
Okay.
to.
And just send it to Breea. Do you have Brea's email?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just send it to Breea with links to the podcast. Anything that you want, anything you needed from us. I don't know if you do promotional materials or anything like that ahead of
Yes.
time. We usually create short clips, like 3 to 5 short clips to promo it before it comes out with
Yes.
captions. And
so,
I
wanted to ask you if you mind doing it, because I do it usually, obviously, for every episode. But then when I saw what you are doing, I'm like, oh, she might be doing a way better job than me.
Yeah, I'll just send it to my editing team and they'll do it for us.
Yeah, and we can start promoting it because it's another 2 weeks, but we can start like putting it out there.
That would be great. Send your logo too for your podcast so we can add the logo at the end.
Okay.
So that'd be perfect. Okay, yeah, send all that stuff to Breea and she'll take care of it for us.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, thank you so much. This has been perfect.
Okay,
have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.